All right, welcome back to the 1.2 podcast. I'm here with Jack after I'll just call it a sad and disappointing start to the NFL season. Is that a fair characterization, Jack?
Fair for now. We'll see how sad and disappointing it is, in the next day or so.
Sure.
But
All
certainly.
right. Well, and of course, we're talking about the Green Bay Packers game last night down in Brazil, first game ever played in South America. Um, Exciting game back and forth, but sloppy on both sides in terms of penalties and sloppy in terms of the field. Jack, what'd you think of that?
Well, obviously, as a Packers fan, I want to start by saying I'm not using the field as an excuse for losing because both teams had to play with it, right?
All right.
That's obvious.
Yep. Yep.
And in fact, in the lead up to the game, I think a lot of people were saying if anyone's going to have an advantage, it's going to be Green Bay because it's similar to Lambeau Field. You see a lot of teams come into Lambeau and struggle to get their footing.
Mm-hmm.
And the Packers, with their molded long cleats, studs, typically don't have that issue. But I think just from a product standpoint, the NFL, that wasn't a good look.
No.
And that was obviously not going to blame it for Jordan Love's injury either. That is a freak type of thing that could happen anywhere. But
he got rolled up on. Yep.
But it just was really sloppy, and I think there needs to be, and there won't, and we can talk about why. I think it's a money thing, but if you're gonna parade our teams around like this and show them off to the world and try and grow the sport, it's got to be better than that.
Yeah, I agree. I also think the first. That's the second game of the year, first week of the year. Is that really the best time to send a team somewhere? Two teams. The number of penalties last night, the sloppiness of it, the interceptions. I think if you're going to say, come be a part of this, you should really be sending a team that, has a couple of weeks to get into the rhythm of things, especially with the preseason games not being played with starters anymore. I agree. It seems like we're not really sending a good product to these foreign market games.
And you have to, we're compromising. And again, this is the NFL. You could talk to David Bakhtiari and who knows who else on, turf versus grass. And, they never really care even over here. But you're compromising these players' safety. And I typically don't really buy into those, arguments, whatever. It's the injuries to me aren't that much greater on turf versus grass, but that was just a sloppy field, a sloppy game. I think it impacted the game on several instances. I mean, the amount of explosive plays was like if you knew where you were going and you could make one cut, the other guy was feet were going out from underneath him. I mean, you saw it on almost every long play, someone slipped.
Yeah.
And how many dropbacks did Jordan Love have where he slipped at the top of his drop?
Yep.
Or receivers at the top of their break. I mean, again, I don't think Jordan Love threw a good ball to Watson in the end zone, but I thought he slipped. And how many times did Wicks slip and dropped it? And
I think
even on
Saquon Barkley's first carry.
Yeah, and I was going to say, even on his touchdown run, when he goes pretty much untouched, and he's going back, he finishes through the end zone and is going back to his sideline, he slips. Someone is going to blow out a knee.
Right. Well, and you get, again, these fans, they're this is exciting for them. This is a big moment for them. There's never been an NFL game in South America. These are, you saw the fans in the stands. They weren't just wearing uh, Green Bay Packers and Philadelphia Eagles shirts. I mean, I saw Buffalo Bills. I saw Pittsburgh Steelers. I saw all kinds of fans. This is their one opportunity to see an NFL game, and what they're seeing is guys just slipping and falling all over. And let's say, to your point, we're trying to expand the market and show this product off. Let's say you bring your buddy who's been watching, soccer his whole life and is used to, the sort of, I don't want to say delicate play of soccer, but sort of you know, the soccer mold of a game. And now he's seeing all these big guys in pads just slipping around, falling around, slipping into each other, not being able to throw or catch the ball the right way. He's gonna say, "Boy, this is nothing like the soccer game that I like. I mean, this is
Hmm.
stupid. Why, look at this." So I think they've really wasted an opportunity. And if I'm a player, which obviously I know nothing about being a professional athlete, but if you're taking me somewhere else out of our regular zone, um, and saying you have to do this now, and your job might depend on this, right? Um, and it's not just this game. We've had issues in fields and a lot of other places.
Hmm.
Was it a preseason game last year in Mexico City that
Yep.
they get down there and the turf is just terrible, and so we've had these issues before. Um, I can't imagine um, any other career or job where they're going to take you and say, we're going to judge you on this performance, but we're going to give you, the wrong tools for this job.
Well, that's what I'm getting at is the NFL has to do better. The you're taking you're uprooting an entire system and a process, and it's already a big pain in the butt. Nobody likes these games.
Right.
And,
Right.
and again, I'm not a never was a professional athlete either, but I know what a routine is
Right.
and how this is disrupting that. And so you have to give them the best of the best. And frankly, I think they're getting the worst of the worst. I mean,
I mean, I
it's
suppose it could
bad,
have been worse. They could have been watching, you know, two bottom feeder teams
right?
slug it out. At least they got some big names and some legitimate teams. But you're right in terms of the infrastructure for that game and the end
Oh, I think
result.
yeah, you're giving the players the worst of the worst.
Oh
Is
yeah, 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 absolutely.
I mean that this should be if you're gonna cause this big of a disruption, they should be going and playing on the nicest field that they've ever played on.
Right,
And the my biggest issue is we were hearing about this in the lead up to the game. It was a
right.
story, and again, I tend to discount those, like, oh, whatever, both teams got to play on it. But it was just bad. I don't know. I've never seen. The only thing that even compares that I've watched was that one Super Bowl. I think the Eagles were in as well, uh, where
Yeah,
the paint was
right,
slippery or whatever it
right.
was.
Well, I remember I think the game in Arizona,
Yeah,
Super Bowl in Arizona. Was that the Eagles
I
game?
think it was that one.
The field, they had watered it the night before, but they kept the
Yeah.
dome closed.
Hmm.
And yeah, I don't, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but they for some reason can't get the can't get the field right for these things. I agree. I agree. As a player, you're getting the worst of it. You're already outside of your routine, outside of your comfort zone. So let me ask you this: you know, in general, do you think it's a good idea to expand a product when the expansion is not going to be as good as the original? Or do you think that it's better to keep whatever product or uh, whatever it is high quality but with less exposure and smaller market?
I the latter.
It seems like
It's
this happens in more than just football,
well, yeah,
right?
and the thing that comes to mind is an economic development theory that you and I are probably both familiar with. Um, that it's not. We should focus on what we have
Right,
and grow that.
right,
Um, but to go out and attract, I see the analogy as going out and attracting these big businesses for this
sure,
community that's not meant to have big businesses
sure,
when there are great businesses in our community,
right,
and we can grow those businesses because those businesses have already proven that they can do well and succeed in that environment.
right.
So to me, it's the same thing. We've got this multi-billion-dollar industry that's doing really well. I don't see the need to go out and make it anything more than it is. It's going to grow naturally.
Right. And you're never going to be soccer.
Right.
You can't. You can't. The barriers to entry in a sense, the barriers to entry are too high for a kid to play football, right? I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
why is soccer such a popular sport? Because all it needs is one piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
One piece of equipment. I mean, that is less than anything else. You don't even need a ball and a bat like you do for baseball, right? So any kid in any city or any town, rural or urban, across the world, can get a soccer ball and kick it around with his friends. You know, you can get uh, heck, you can get a plastic bag and fill it with bits of scrunched up paper and kick it around,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have something that anyone can do anywhere. Whereas football, you need pads, you need helmets, you need, it's just, and you can't just, make the ball out of what you have around you. Um, so I think the NFL needs to learn its identity and excel at what it's already done so well. Um, I mean, it's a very American style of sport and play. It's um, and globally you've got rugby, so it's not like there's no comparable. But even in that realm, yeah, rugby is popular here and there, but it's nowhere close to soccer. And I think the NFL needs to recognize that and realize, you're not going to get um, these audiences that you're wanting.
And I guess I just don't get what they're looking for. I mean, people around the world are buying jerseys. People around the world are supporting the teams that they want.
Hmm.
Are they just, is it simply looking for more people to do that? I don't know. Like,
I think so much of their money comes from ad revenue, right? So if they can bring a team down to San Paulo and get a bigger interest in it, then more people are going to watch it on TV in that market from now on. Because yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I saw the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles, and it was an exciting game. And so I started watching the Eagles, or I started watching the Packers, and now I watch it every chance I can get. Right? And that's ad revenue, global ad revenue is what it all comes down to, I think. Um, but if you look at the other sports that that we have, the I'll call them the power sports, right? The baseball, hockey, and basketball. I say hockey even though it's such a small in comparison. Let's look at basketball and baseball. You have those teams and leagues in other countries,
mm-hmm.
right? Now, maybe if you took You see the NBA going on tours in China. If you took the Dodgers and the Mets and you sent them over to you know some South American country where baseball's big, you take them down to Cuba to play. Okay, there's going to be a lot of interest there, and it's a little more intuitive. Um, but it's like we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole with this NFL in other countries thing. We don't even have leagues of any sort
Mm-hmm.
in these other countries. The most you have is these little, you know, kind of international NFL training program. Almost like little internship. You get the international pathway program, things like that. But it's not like you've got a football league in England or a football league in Spain or Germany or South America. You've got some clubs that play, but no one's making a living off of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen these international games as relatively harmless for the last however many years they've done it, but I think I'm just over it at this point. And I would be saying the same thing if Green Bay would have won last night and Jordan Love potentially was missing the year. But
Right.
it's just, it's, to me, it's not worth it. It's not worth it
Right.
for the teams. It's not worth it. And again, maybe it's way worth it in terms of the money they're making, and that's all they care about. And again, that's
Right.
fine.
Well, I mean, I think we have to come back to reality, which is this is a business. These teams, they're not here for us. They're here for the owners, right? And and so they're going to do everything that they think makes business sense. And from that regard, I can't blame them for wanting to explore opportunities for other revenue. I just think they're going about it wrong, right? I think, put some money into establishing a minor league, uh, you know, NFL affiliated minor league in a couple of other countries, right? You set the foundation for these things. And then when it grows in popularity, then you bring a team over. You've got a football field set up that's already ready for, NFL play, and you can do that. Um, I do think it's interesting between the league that there's not a standardization requirement for fields.
Yeah.
Again, it's interesting, um, and that's I guess you compare it to baseball too. It's not a standardization of field size, right? Some fields are bigger than other fields. Um, do you think that sports at that level should be standardized?
I don't know. I think it's fun to have a little bit of differences, but it has a greater effect on the games, I think, than people realize,
Hmm.
and really the history of the sport. I look at, you brought up baseball and field size. I look at something like Yankee Stadium. I mean, I don't know, and it's really not that many because he's a phenomenal player and he can hit really
Right,
far home runs. But
right,
look at Aaron Judge's home runs, and Yankee Stadium has a really short right center field.
right.
There have to be several. I know there's one at least, and I'm sure there are more. That the only stadium in the MLB where that would have been a home run is at Yankee Stadium. And now
Yep.
you're talking about, excuse me, a player's place in history. I mean, he plays 10 years there, he gets 25 more home runs than he would have playing anywhere else.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
it has a greater impact, I think, than people realize. Is it a bad impact? I don't necessarily know, but
Right. And in one game, it might not matter, but when you extrapolate it, the effect of, the type of field, the size of the field, over a number of years. I mean, I used to think that that had to be one of the reasons why the Oakland Raiders were so bad. You don't even have a football stadium to play on. You're
Yeah.
running across
Dirt.
the dirt lines, and I mean that had to have some sort of cumulative effect on that team, um, long term. I
The
mean, it's just
craziest part to me about back to football, with grass versus turf, those sorts of things. I think I'm team. Well, I think I said earlier I never really thought it mattered, but I think I'm in favor of making that all the same. I know why they don't,
mhm.
but the craziest part is that a stadium that has turf, if they're having a major soccer team come in, they put grass down,
Yep.
and they won't do that for their own league. Like that,
Right.
that's weird.
Yep. Yep. And in a multi-billion-dollar business, it's hard to believe that the owners won't spend a couple $1 million here
Well,
and
it's
there.
this, but it's the same reason why we put domes on stadiums now. It's because they want to be able to use them year round and have the concerts and the big shows, and
Yep.
that's why they got the turf, because that's a lot easier to
Right. Right.
roll up and get rid of than the grass. But it's a money thing.
It is. It is. Well, let's touch base on one more thing though, which is new to the NFL this year, um, which is the kickoff. Where are we at? What are your thoughts?
Dumb.
You know,
I don't know what else. I mean, it's just the. Go ahead.
well, that one kickoff, was that intentional or not? The kind of loopy, grounded line
Intentional.
drive. I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
That was interesting to me.
The problem is, and I think this will be a rules adjustment. They have to put the touchback out further.
Yeah.
They have to make it more of a penalty for kicking it through the end zone if they want to really incentivize returns.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to get the stat wrong. I think I was listening to this before the game last night, was that they moved it. It's the 30, right?
Right.
And the average return in the preseason, I think, was like to the 28 and a half.
Right.
And so they said, for an extra yard and a half, teams are just kicking it through the end zone because the risk of someone taking it back isn't worth
Right.
that extra yard and a half.
Right.
So if you want to incentivize not doing that, and you want to incentivize returns, you got to put it out to the 35, I think, or the 40.
I think, it's just completely killed the excitement of the play
Mm-hmm.
to me. Having all the defenders and the tackle, the kicking team lining up in that box. It used to be an exciting play. It is not an exciting play anymore. I would prefer simply starting the game on the 25-yard line
Yeah.
with the ball over this format.
Yeah.
This is not an exciting kick play.
No.
So
No.
I'm over.
And didn't the
this,
game start with a penalty, like an illegal formation?
Yeah, it was tacked on 5 yards extra. I forget, one of the Eagles players moved, or before the ball was touched, or before the ball hit the ground, or whatever it was. What do you think of the new, or not the new, but the emphasis on the tackles lining up, uh, 6 inches further back than they should have been? You saw the Ravens penalized. Was that 4 times?
Yeah.
Like 2 in a row, and then a third one on the same drive for for their left tackle being lined up. His helmet wasn't up to the belt line of the.
Yeah, and haven't you've seen
center.
the like lines drawn and that all of their feet are on the same plane,
Right.
but he just stands more upright. I mean, the explanation I saw is that he stands more upright than the normal.
Right.
Like, to me,
Right.
if your feet are in the same spot, why does it matter where your chest and head are?
I think that's the strangest way to enforce that rule, where your helmet is.
Yeah.
I mean, that really depends on how you line up, right? I mean, just pulling your head up and looking around versus having it down. I mean, are you in a 3-point stance or a upright stance?
I'm more bothered. I wish there was a greater point of emphasis on what the Chiefs tackle was doing. Starting the play early. Yeah. Like, that to me is a false start and has always been a false start, and gives a greater advantage than standing upright on the same line of scrimmage.
Completely agree. I think some of the Eagles linemen were doing it last night too. I know that these linemen are getting I know why they want that quick snap right off the ball, but no, I agree. I think a lot of linemen are going off sides when you see or false starts when you see what was the false start was on Goddard. A little a tight end or a receiver twitches slightly, right, and they don't call it. Versus
they ate a burrito before the game in there. Seriously, like, it's this silliest thing. But that lineman can jump, like that drop step jump.
Right.
Is happening before the ball is snapped.
Mm-hmm.
And again, everybody in every sport tries to take advantage of it as much as possible, and you do it until you get caught.
Right. Yeah. Well, hopefully they have some points of clarity. I know that in past years, whenever they've come out to emphasize, quote unquote, a certain penalty, there's been kind of outrage in the past over it, and sometimes it just kind of goes away by the end of the season because they realize it's not really something worth emphasizing.
And that's that I'll put a bow on this. That's what bothers me the most, is that penalty's not getting called in the playoffs.
Right.
And so why are we officiating, and it happens all the time. I shouldn't be surprised by it, but why are we officiating differently now than we will be in the games that matter most?
Right. Yep. I mean, in a sense, it's when you had the different rules with the designated hitter, and then you get to the playoffs, and whoever had the home field advantage had. So use the same rules. Use the same rules that you're going to enforce throughout the year, and just stick with it. I agree.
Stop playing on bad fields.
Stop playing on bad fields. All right. Well, hopefully the NFL takes our advice. I know they're listening. Yes. So let's hope that they
do better.
Put out a better product. All right. Till next time.